how do you kind of categorize your content when planning? What's a typical successful day in your calendar look like?
It really comes down to the conversion metric that you're using for each post.
Hey, what's up, and welcome to today's episode of Social Media Moneymakers, part of the Stan family of podcasts. My name is Brock Johnson, and today we're taking a journey back to the land of Instagram. After the last few weeks where we were doing interviews relating to affiliate marketing, email marketing, and even TikTok marketing, today we're going back to Instagram, where I have the pleasure of interviewing one of my favorite Instagram content creators, Jeff Isessel. You'll hear me say it at the beginning of our conversation today, but I am truly a fan of his posts. They are so original and unique, and it's very clear to see that he has a strong brand identity that comes through in his content, and it's so much more than just the colors and fonts that he uses. In today's episode, he shares with us how he breaks down a successful week. He shares with us how often he posts to his feed and why he chooses to post less than once a day. He also tells us his strategy for coming up with content and how he differentiates between an aesthetically pleasing Instagram profile and a cohesive Instagram profile. On the back half of the interview, we go deeper into the business side of Instagram, where he shares the team that he's built over the last few years, and he shares his offers that he's made to his audience and how he's been strategic about high ticket versus low ticket offers. If you're someone with less than 10,000 followers on Instagram, or you haven't quite hit the sales or income numbers that you're hoping to hit on Instagram just yet, make sure that you stick around until the end, because I think that the advice Jeff is sharing is really, really valuable, especially for people just starting out. Just like every other guest that I've had on the show so far, Jeff is a great person with a great heart and a ton of knowledge relating to social media marketing. So without further ado, here's our conversation. Hello, Jeff. Welcome to today's episode of the podcast.
Thank you for having me, Brock. How are you?
I'm doing so good, and I am so excited that you took time out of your day to be here with me, because I really admire your content. And there's a lot of people who are in our space and who do what we do, but you are truly showing up in such an authentic way. For anyone who isn't following you already, I highly encourage that they go check out your content, because I can truly say there are very few people in our space who I can say I'm a fan of, and you are absolutely one of them. So I wanted to commend you on your awesome content.
Oh my goodness. Thank you, Brock. Honestly, I think I've told you this before because we had our first conversation on Instagram Live about a year ago now. And I take every opportunity that I can to let you know just how big of a fan of yours I am. I've watched your content and your videos long before I ever started creating, which was like 3 years ago. And I still watch them. I'm still a fan of them. And I just want to use this opportunity again to say thank you for just your contribution to the space and just how, tirelessly you put in the work and what you've made. I do believe that your work has greatly impacted just what we have today in the industry with like Instagram coaching and stuff. So thank you. It's wonderful.
Well, I appreciate that. You're really too kind, and I'm really excited to get to have this conversation today, to quite literally get to pick your brain and go through all these different aspects of, what can make content creation fun and how you can grow on social media and all of these things. But my first question for you is, how do you go about coming up with your content? Do you have a strict formula that you follow? Do you let inspiration flow like the wind? How do you come up with your content?
Honestly, with that, I really try to aim for evergreen content. I feel like in today's day and time, people really want to jump on a trend or try to go viral. And in my experience of content creation, it's so easy. I say it all the time. The easiest thing you can do on Instagram is to go viral. That's by far one of the easiest things you can do. But what really sets you apart is the evergreen content that you're able to create for your community and your audience that people can still watch in 10 years from now and 5 years from now and still be able to pull value from. And so when I think of come up with my content strategy, I'm really looking at what's going to be that evergreen content to really create the conversion that I want. And that's really where I try to think from. So it really
Mhm.
can range from what the strategy is from week to week. So if we're having like a B-roll DTC, which is a direct to camera. So if we're having a B-roll DTC and carousel week, then we kind of want to tailor everything in a way that it's not repetitive and redundant. So you want to have a carousel that could be teaching about something, but you also want to have a direct to camera video that is helping you build authority in your industry and really letting you show your perspective and teach on something that you are passionate about, and letting your audience see just your thought process and being able to trust you more. And then if we're having a B-roll, we want to have a text on screen that's not too text heavy, but something they can consume and, be impactful. So really just having like a good balance with just the overall strategy is how you kind of want to go about it. And that's what I do for myself and my clients.
Gotcha. That totally makes sense. I can totally see that. I was thinking about a post that you made. I think it was a few weeks, if not a few months ago now. It was this
Yeah.
viral trend that was going on where people were like taping their phone to the ceiling, and then they were like, I think the trend, if I remember, was like dancing around in a circle, kind of like under your
Yes.
your phone.
Yeah.
And you did one where it starts with you standing up on like a chair or the counter or whatever. You tape your phone to the ceiling, and then you walk out of the screen, and revealed underneath your feet is a piece of paper that says like post your content or something like
Right.
that. And I remember seeing that. I'm like, it's so good because it fits the trend more or less.
Right.
Like it immediately is contextualized, and I can understand, oh, this relates to this viral trend. And yet it's something that I can see months later, and it's still delivering value. And it's not just another exact same carbon copy recreation. And I thought that was so creative and so original and unique. And I loved that. And there's so many examples of that on your Instagram. So do you just see a viral trend and then you ask yourself, how could I make this evergreen? Or how could I do this differently? Or are there specific things that you try to take out of viral trends that can apply to your own content?
First of all, I just want to say, Brock, I absolutely hate trends. Like it gives me the ick. I hate trends so badly just because of how time bound it is. It's like you have to do it now or otherwise it's going to be, out of the window. And personally, like a lot of content that I share is stuff that I probably filmed like 2 months ago, 1 month ago. And that's why I say evergreen content is so wonderful, because these are things you can like batch produce and it's still going to be relevant. It's not going to be time bound on the trend. But to answer your question, with trends, I always want to make sure that as much as possible, you're sticking to your brand message. A lot of people want to jump on a trend and go viral. But the thing is, going viral is not the problem. When you get all of these eyes and all of these people coming on your account and they saw you go viral because you're dancing and now they're on your page and you're cooking, it's just not going to be the same thing. And so you want to make sure that as much as possible, regardless of whatever trend it is, you still want to drive home the message. You still want to stick with your overall brand message and just what you represent and what you stand for. And so, yeah, that's what I always pay attention to, how we're able to spin it in a way that it still sticks to, what the brand message is for my business.
How does someone strategically go about developing their brand message? Like what is entailed in a brand message?
It really comes down to knowing the people that you want to serve and understanding how you choose to serve those people. Because I say it all the time, there is a people for every person. Creating a brand message really comes down to understanding who your people are and how you will be showing up for them every day. And so if you are serving working moms, full-time working moms, and you're trying to teach them liberation outside their 9 to 5, you want to make sure that as much as possible, you're showing up for them every day in a very consistent way and with a very consistent message. So understanding your people and knowing how you choose to serve them and show up for them every day is the first thing you want to consider when you're coming up with your brand message as far as strategy goes.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes sense. Earlier, you were talking about, hey, maybe this week we're doing some DTC direct to camera content and some B roll content and a carousel, which perfectly goes with a question I was hoping to ask you, which is how do you differentiate your content into categories? Is it purely on like what style of video it is, like direct to camera versus B-roll? Do you think of things in terms of engagement outcomes? Like this post is a very savable post. This post is a very shareable post. How do you kind of categorize your content when planning?
So here is the thing. I love to work with a performance metric system. I don't know that a lot of people do this, but I love to work with a performance metric system. I say it all the time. success is so relative, but it also really applies to content creation. What's considered a successful post with one content is completely not the same for another, right? So you could have a post that has 20,000 likes, but it's giving you $0. If the performance metric system for that post is the likes, then you can consider that as a successful post, right? However, if the performance metric system you're using for another is the conversion as far as sales, you could have 1,000 likes on that post, but you would get like $20,000 from the same post. So, really understanding what your end result is, what the conversion that you're really looking forward to is. If you're trying to get more followers, if you're trying to get more customers, more clients, more conversations, building like a community and a connection with your audience, that all of these different factors play into how you overall just plan your content. And that's what I do. So, we have weeks or months where we're trying to get more customers, or we have a new offer that we're trying to put out and just push for the next 2 weeks. We're really going to tailor our content around that. There are weeks where we just want to connect with the audience. We just want to have that conversation going. We have like 400, 500 comments where we're just going back and forth and really responding to them and having a deep conversation with them. So it really comes down to the conversion metric that you're using for each post. That's how I would, advise that you measure your success.
Gotcha. Okay, that totally makes sense to me. That's helpful. I know you said that you likely filmed the post that we're seeing today a month or two ago. So how far in advance do you have things in like a concrete schedule? And then how far in advance do you have things in a rough idea or an outline schedule?
Right. So if we have, say we're launching an offer, for example, in June, we 99% of the time already have like at least like 90% of the content that will go out for that offer, we already have it like 2 months prior, right? So we kind of know just the framework of how we're going to talk about the offer and what it's going to look like, and the content that's going to go up, the stories that are going to go up. Are we going to go live? How many lives are we going to do? Is there going to be a free webinar to promote that offer? Are we going to have any giveaways? Like, we already have like a proper framework like 2 months ahead. And then in between those, if there's something that comes up, or if there's a conversation that a person brought up in the comments that we thought is, something that we might want to, piggyback off of, then we can have like a just out of the blue type of content. But 9 times out of 10, I already have stuff planned like way ahead of time, just because of my personal schedule. And again, it really comes down to having evergreen content, because if you would do that with a trend, you're just going to be shooting yourself in the foot. It's not going to work.
Yeah. Totally, totally. Speaking of your personal schedule, I'd love to learn a little bit more about how you structure and order your days, because I think everyone has their own unique approach to like what makes a successful day for them. So I'm wondering what's a typical successful day in your calendar look like?
Gosh, I used to be so just I used to live and die for the hustle culture. Like, I would just work all the time and just save up so much money because like, I just graduated law school, and it was just a lot of things. And, I would just work all the time, Brock. But now I'm learning to be able to create like balance in my life. And that's where, scheduling content and batch producing content comes in. But I'm learning to have a lot more balance in my life and being able to do things that make me truly happy aside just outside working, because this is work for me, right? So when I'm not
Yeah.
doing this, I love to do, other things that do truly make me happy. And so yeah, a successful week in my life is having at least 4 to 5 content go up, and then having, time to spend with my cat, having time to spend with my partner, and traveling, going to the mountains. We just went hiking for like a day and a half in the
I
mountains, and
saw that.
it was insane. And we went like 2,000 kilometers above sea level. We were camping and stuff like that. And thanks to automations and just like, a great team, you can have things running even without having to be there and, physically and on time be responding to stuff. So I really try to create as much balance as possible, especially since this is work for me. This isn't just a hobby. Like, this is a full-time job for me. So when I'm not doing this, I try to maximize my time with everything else as much as I can.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. I saw a post today that said something along the lines of, when you realize that everything in your life is content, then you'll win. And I remember thinking, oh gosh, if every piece of your life, every moment of your life becomes content, then you lose, because you literally are losing your life to constantly having to be filming yourself and B-roll and behind the scenes, and
Yes.
you truly don't have a moment of unplugging and a moment of breaking away from that hustle culture. And so many entrepreneurs will say, well, I would rather work 80 hours a week for myself than 40 hours for someone else. And that's a great sentiment, and I'm glad that people enjoy working for themselves and then they are rejecting the corporate rat race. But I'm so glad to hear you speaking about learning to put those boundaries in place and finding joy and doing things that are not related to work. Because even though you and I can both say we enjoy creating content, we enjoy having a podcast interview and getting to do things like this, at the end of the day, it is still work. And I think that's a
It
slippery slope
is.
that a lot of entrepreneurs and content creators can get into, of like, well, I enjoy it. Yes, you enjoy it, but it's still work, and you need to
It
have
is
time
still work.
doing things that is not still work.
Exactly. It is still work. And I feel like even that, receiving that understanding creates a world of difference where this is a job, and just receiving that and being able to approach things from that perspective really creates a world of difference. For me, at least, it did. And I just want to say something as well, personally, and a lot of people don't know this about me. I am so incredibly introverted, painfully introverted. And I was just having this conversation with my partner literally like an hour ago, and I said, if I never had to do this as a job, if this wasn't my literal full-time career, I probably wouldn't even have an Instagram. Like, I am so introverted, and so I try to keep my life completely away from Instagram as much as I can, and just make it completely be about work. You know what I mean? And there's many sides to that, but where I'm going with it is, as creators, just having that time to yourself to reflect on other things happening externally really also does help you be able to be just a successful creator. And I think one of the things that has really helped me be able to come up with content ideas and all of these other things is because I'm always by myself, and I'm always to myself, so I'm able to like really take in, just draw inspiration from as many things as possible. But yeah, it's just, I feel like regardless of what it is, creating balance is just really, really important.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree. I think it's so important. The distance that you can put between yourself and your quote unquote work, which for us is
Yes.
content creation, I think can allow for a lot more creativity to flow. And I would say the vast majority of my best ideas come from detaching from my work and seeing things in a movie or in a TV show or reading a book or going for a walk or talking to someone who has no idea what Instagram even is, and that's where the best
Yes.
can come from. But there's so much I want to unpack here. So first, I want to go back to where you were talking about being so entranced in this kind of like hustle culture. The
Mm.
homeostasis is just, I'm going to work, 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 and now you're at a place where you're detaching more. You're going on like these long hiking, camping trips,
Yes.
and I hear this from a lot of successful entrepreneurs and creators that early on they hustled and they grinded and they even saw maybe even some of the unhealthy sides of that. And then they
Mm.
got to a stage where they stopped, but also once they were stopping, once they were at that stopping stage, they were successful. And so I'm
Mm.
just curious your opinion. Like, is it necessary to hustle a little bit, to hustle a lot? Or is it like, hey, this is unfortunately just what a lot of people end up doing. But in reality, you don't ever need to hustle. You should never, you know, stay up till 3 a.m. creating content. I'm so curious there because I just feel like a lot of people might look at you and I and might be like, okay, Jeff and Brock, you guys can talk about finding joy and going on camping trips, but I have 200 followers, so I can't go on a camping trip. I need to post another reel. What would you
True.
say to that person?
Oh my gosh, I love that came to that, because that's where I was going with it. I can sit up here all day and say, "Oh, what? Just go on another camping trip and just don't hustle." But I will be honest with you, when I started creating content on Instagram, Lord, I was sharing content every single day and taking bar exams and just doing a million things at the same time and feeling frustrated. And I was in a very terrible place just mentally. And I would just have these breakdowns, but I would create content anyway. And it was just hard. So I'm not going to sit up here and say don't hustle at all. Of course, it does have its benefits, but I do think it's important to create that balance. But in the beginning, I'm not going to be a hypocrite. In the beginning, you do need to put in the work. You do need to be consistent. You do need to show up. You do need to let your people trust you and let them know, even though you're not posting every day, you still got them. You're still going to show up in 2 days, but in the beginning, when they're still getting to know you and still getting to connect with you, it's important that you are very consistent in the way that you show up for them. And so when you start to pull back and start to want to have your own time for yourself, they're going to show up for you even when you're not being consistently there as you would have been, like a year ago or 2 years ago. It took me 2 years, Brock, 2 years to be able to pull back and be like, okay, I'll share content like 4 to 5 times a week instead of 7 times a week. You know what I mean? It took me 2 years of just consistent work and consistently sharing. And mind you, even on those days when I'm not sharing content, I'm still working. I'm still attending to my clients and my one on one clients, but I'm just not, I'm just learning to be able to create balance and allow myself enjoy, the result of all that hard work. You know what I mean? So in the beginning, I'm not going to lie. I do think it's important to, I wouldn't say hustle, but I would say to show up consistently as much as you can.
Yeah. Well, I
Yeah.
appreciate your honesty, and I would agree. I think that's a great way to put it. Is not hustle, but be consistent and still work hard. I think there's a
Yeah.
differentiation that can be made between
Absolutely.
hustling and working hard. I
Yes.
want to talk more about being an introvert because I'm someone who is outgoing and an extrovert. I was raised by a mom who is very outgoing, yet is also very introverted. So I'm very
Hmm.
aware of the different sides to this. My wife is a very outgoing introvert, and so I'm curious from your point of view, posting on Instagram, is that something that feels like draining, or is that creating content, is that something that feels like it takes it out of you the way maybe being in like a party or like a crowded bar would? And how do you deal with that? How do you cope with being a content creator who's posting 4 or 5 times a week and has hundreds of thousands of followers, and at the same time being introverted?
Oh my God. Yes, it was very, very, very draining. I hated
Mm.
it. I'm not even gonna lie. I really hated it. I hated every second of it. I did not enjoy it. It was very overwhelming for me. I do not like to film myself. I do not like to be filmed. I do not like to hear my voice. I do not like, I'm a
Wow.
horrible dancer. I just had all the odds against me. Okay. So it was just bad. When I started, I hated every second of it. But this is something that I always try to remind everyone of as much as I can. This is where building a community comes in and finding your people. This is where it becomes really important because they would create that safe space for you to be who you are and let you feel like it's okay. And they would stand up for you when they need to, and they would show up for you when they have to. And that was what really changed everything for me. I remember consistently putting out content, and I always had the target of really building my community and really having my people. And as the followers stacked up and the numbers increased, I started to really find that connection in the people that were in my circle in a way that I personally don't see these people as just numbers. I have over 200,000 followers now, but it's like I wish I could be in a room with every single one of them and just give them a hug. Because listen,
Mm.
y'all don't know how much this means to me. I would never ever imagine my life just being in front of a camera like that because I just hate it. I really do not like it at all. But having your community and having that clear message of just who you are and just letting them really connect with you, it really helps to take that, feeling away. And it worked for
Yeah.
me. And, going live with them, connecting with them. Till this day, I still respond to every single one of my comments. And I'm not saying that's what everyone needs to do, but for me, I needed to do that to really build that connection with them because it's important for
Yeah.
me to have that connection. You know what I mean? So that's how I've been
Yeah.
able to navigate it.
That totally makes sense. I mean, I often preach about, find joy in the process. There's something that you can find joy in some part of content creation, even if you're someone who hates the sound of their voice on camera or hates
Hmm.
writing scripts or posting on Instagram. And so I love hearing from someone like yourself, who is a professional content creator, who is an excellent top tier content creator, who's like, no, I still don't like the sound of my voice. I still don't like recording myself on camera, but I found joy in my community. And so
Yes.
that can fill up my cup enough that it can
Yes.
make those other things worth it. So I love hearing that.
Mhm.
And I appreciate you sharing that.
Thank you.
Of
Thank you,
course.
Brock.
Speaking of your content, your Instagram has a visual look to it. When I look
Hmm.
at your grid, there's a look, and I feel like especially there used to be more of like a blue tone, and it's like very aesthetically pleasing. It's clean, it's crisp, it's bright. So my question for you is: does or is having a aesthetically pleasing Instagram profile grid? Do you think that's necessary, or is that just something that you enjoy?
Oh my God. Um, I think a lot of people, there's a very thin line between aesthetic and cohesive. And it's
Mm.
so common to see people fall under the aesthetic presentation rather than the cohesive presentation. I try to keep mine
Mm.
cohesive, and I'm going to tell you why. Aesthetic is so robotic, it's so boring, it's so predictable, it's just not genuine. It's disingenuous, and people just are not able to connect with it.
Mhm.
However, a cohesive feed, it's not looking like you're living 7 days of the week on a Canva design and creating covers, right? It looks like it's collective and put together. It looks intentional. A cohesive page looks intentional versus an aesthetic page, which just looks robotic at best, right?
Mm.
So I try to keep mine cohesive as much as possible. So there is like a blue here, there is a black here, there's a white here. I try to keep my tone very neutral, right? So I'm not going to be designing a cover on Canva all day, even though I don't think there's anything wrong with that. If that's how you choose to do it, that's great, okay? But I just wouldn't advise that you spend all your time doing that. What you really want to make sure that you're doing is keeping your page cohesive, coordinating your fonts if you have to, coordinating just the display of the colors on your page, just to create as much of an experience for your audience as possible. When they come on your account, they should be able to kind of figure their way out around things. They should be able to see, like the topics and what you're talking about. They just elevating that experience for your audience as much as possible is what I really, really try to preach and what I live by. So yeah, for me, it's cohesive over aesthetic for sure.
That totally makes sense. And I think that's a great way to describe your grid. So if anyone's listening right now and they don't already follow you, definitely they should. I would recommend they take a look at your Instagram because I think it is really a great example of exactly what you just described. And myself personally, I've always been very anti aesthetic grid. But nonetheless, people will look at my grid and they'll say, well, there's lots of yellow and I see the black and the white and vibrant colors. And I love the way you're differentiating there between the aesthetic pre-planned robotic grid and the
Hmm.
intentional grid, the grid where you
Yes.
you want someone to be able to see a post and see how it
Hmm.
fits right in, or see the whole grid as a whole and see how it looks intentionally put together. And that's something that I do. A little thing that I like to do is just making sure that back-to-back posts or posts that end up stacking vertically on top of each other, that they
Yes.
don't look the exact same,
Yes.
which
Oh
I
my
know is
gosh.
a problem for it's a problem for me because of like the
Yes.
yellow background, or like if I'm filming at my desk, I don't want two of the exact same posts in a row with the mic and the
Yes.
desk and like it looks the same. So I totally get what you're saying. Now, earlier you a few times used the word we. When we are planning content, when we are making our strategy. And so I assume that we means that you have a team or some staff members who are helping
Hmm.
you. A, is that correct? And B, if it is, would you mind sharing some of like what your team members do for you and how they help you?
Yes, that is correct. And up until a year ago, I was just like all by myself. Okay. I was doing everything by myself. And about a year ago, I hired my first assistant, who she's absolutely incredible. And then I hired my second assistant, who is in a different time zone because we started getting clients across different time zones. And so we
Mhm.
needed to have well, I needed to have two assistants so that just one of them can handle like the European time zone and then another can handle like the American time zone, right? And so they've really been handling that as much as possible. And then just very recently we had to hire an editor, and it's not for me because I love to edit my stuff, right? But we started having a lot of one-on-one clients, and a lot of them we needed to do a lot of editing work for. And so we have an editor, we have two assistants, and I do have like a marketing person who gives marketing advice. She's not a full-time team member, but she would work with us, every other month, or if we have a launch coming, if we have a new offer coming. And so she's been really, really pivotal and just really helpful to the overall work we've been doing on Instagram. But my key people are my editor, and my two assistants. They're amazing.
Gotcha. Awesome. Cool. Good to know. I'd love to transition a little bit and focus on offers and selling and making money on Instagram, really. Um, let's start by covering what do you think some of the most common mistakes that you see people making when they first begin promoting, selling, offering on Instagram?
So are you talking just overall sale for their own product or like affiliate marketing?
Great question. I think first let's go into specifically they have their own product, be it an ebook or coaching or a course or whatever. They're selling their own thing. And then we can talk about, if they're doing affiliate sales, brand partnerships, that sort of thing.
One of the most common mistakes that I see with personal products that people would sell is not being able to tie it to the relevance of their brand and just focusing on selling the product, right? So, what we
Mhm.
try to keep in mind is tying the relevance of that product to exactly what it is that your brand represents, tying the relevance of how it's going to help the customer and the potential buyer. People just want to focus on marketing the product and advertising the product and focusing on the pain point of the customer instead of focusing on the desire. There's a very thin line between pain point marketing and desire marketing. Finding that good balance would be having your product as a bridge to, kind of bring both together and letting them know this is your pain point, this is your desire, it's going to be okay. And I see a lot of content creators just, again, like I said, focus on selling the product and not really bringing it home, right? So what you
Mhm.
really want to do is make sure that as much as possible create like a context to the product that you're offering, create like a backstory to the product that you're offering, and show different ways of, applying that product in everyday life and how to utilize it and how you utilize it. You know what I mean? Um,
Yeah.
something something that I do want us to talk about though is the fact that the influencer marketing industry lately has really drastically shrunk. And so we're seeing a lot more influencers now sell products or create offers,
Mhm.
and navigating how to sell as an influencer versus selling as an entrepreneur and selling as a person who owns a community is two completely different things. A lot of times you see people sell as influencers instead of selling as a
Mhm.
community builder. These are your people.
Yeah.
These are people who have had conversations with you. You should be able to sell to them, letting them know that you're offering a solution to a conversation you guys probably had like 6 months ago or 3 months
Mhm.
ago, and letting them know that you have them in mind. And so you're creating this, solution to that problem they had, rather than marketing your product as an influencer because, it's just a very thin line. And so I think it's important to really know how to find, that balance with your community.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. When I think about when I'm hearing everything you say is oftentimes when people create their own products or they're selling their own things, they know so well all of the features, right? All of the X, Y, and Z that went into it. How many lessons is the course? How many pages is the ebook? And so they focus on all of those features rather than focusing primarily on the benefits or the solutions offered by the product or the pain points that led them to creating said product and how that relates back to the overarching themes and pain points that they're talking about on Instagram. So this very much makes sense. If you are
Yes.
someone who you're just getting started and you don't even have your own product yet, but you want to start monetizing your following through maybe affiliate marketing. You have a great product that you love that you're ready to recommend. What are some mistakes that people in that camp often make?
With affiliate marketing, oh my gosh, I can't tell you how many times I've seen a creator who talks about, let's say, Instagram growth, for example, right? But having affiliate marketing with, I don't know, like just the most random thing you can think about. The most common mistake I see
Yeah.
is just not having literally zero connection with what you are offering or what your brand is about, right? So you cannot be an affiliate marketer for Amazon, for example, or kitchen appliances when your entire brand is about Instagram growth and Instagram marketing. You see what I'm saying? So I can't
Yeah.
tell you enough. It's one of the most common mistakes that I see, people not being able to really marry their brand message with the product that they're, being affiliates for. So I know some of these deals can be quite enticing, and the same kind of goes again for influencer marketing. Just being able to cherry pick the brands that you choose to collaborate with and the brands that you choose to be an affiliate for is so important with putting those type of
Mhm.
content out.
Yeah, gotcha. Okay, so I'd love to now go back into your own story for a minute, specifically when you first began selling your own thing, offering your own things. What was the first uh, paid product or offer that you had on your Instagram?
That would be, oh my gosh, it's been 3 years. That would be consultations and Reels training. Because, 3 years ago, Reels was such a big deal. I mean, it still is, but now,
Yeah.
like back then, people would pay anything to learn how to make Reels, but now people wouldn't pay to
Yeah.
learn how to make Reels. They'll just make Reels. But I remember this was like no. This was like 3 months into having my Instagram. And I think I had like 7,000 followers at the time. And I went on there and I said, I'm going to have like a big discount and, we're going to do $80 per Reels training. And we're going to have a Reels training per hour, $80. I'm going to train you for 1 hour and teach you everything you need to know for $80. Right. And we
Mhm.
had, at the time, I had like 7,000 followers and we had like 200 inquiries, but I couldn't really manage it anyhow at that time because I had just started. In the end, I had like
Yeah.
50 people who actually did pay and sign up to, get the 1 hour $80 thing. And it was, I really needed that at that time. And it was really
Mhm.
successful. And, one thing that I continually just learned from Instagram is once you're able to sell once you're able to make money from Instagram once, you can do it again and again and again and again and again. If you know how
Yes.
to make money one time, you can repeat it, you can multiply that income, and you can do it again and again. As long as you're able to sell
Yeah.
once, even to one person, you can do it again.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that for those listening who haven't made any money or any sales on Instagram yet, the first time you get that little notification from Stripe that a payment just went through and there's a successful charge from your Instagram, it's like light bulb moment. Oh my gosh, this is
Yeah.
possible. I get it. It's such a difference maker. I totally agree. So, if I'm understanding correctly, when you first got started, you had the consultations and you had kind of like you would teach someone how to create the reels,
Yes.
and those were discounted to 80, so can obviously assume they were more than $80. So at what point did you or have you ever started creating like low ticket, like less than $50 or even free products?
Mm.
Have you ever offered anything like that to your audience?
Yes. Oh my gosh, we have one running right now. It's called Insta Planner. So in the beginning, when I first started, it was just high ticket offers. So outside the $80
Mm.
discount that we had, it was just high ticket offers. I created a course. It was like $2,500. I had like Instagram management. We still have Instagram management. It's like $2,500. It was all these high ticket offers, right? And then it wasn't up until a year ago, or maybe even 9 months ago, where we had the first set of low ticket rollout. And it was actually
Mm.
surprisingly very successful. And the same goes with Instaplanner now, where Instaplanner is literally $24.99. And just the success we got even in the first week, it's been by far the most successful launch we've ever had, the most successful launch week we've ever had in a 1 week period. And so, even though high ticket offers are great, low ticket offers that really just are straight to the point, you would be shocked how much you can do with that. I am still
Yeah.
shocked from the success we've gotten from Instaplanner. And this is
Yeah.
after 3 years of multiple products, multiple offers. And we just had Instaplanner launch a week ago, and it completely blew my mind just how successful it's been. And so, yes, low ticket offers, there is a lot happening there too.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Well, congratulations on that. That's pretty awesome. I'm curious now
Thank
that
you.
you've been doing this for a few years and you're like, I started with high ticket, I had success there, but now we launched this low ticket offer and we're having crazy success. Do you still feel if you had to do it all over again, you would follow the same order of events? Or would you start out early on with a lower ticket offer and then build over time?
Absolutely. I would not change a single thing, and I'm gonna tell you why. I would not change
Yeah.
a single thing, and I'm gonna be cliche for a bit and say because I've
Mhm.
learned so much from all of my decisions, but from a strategic point of view, I would tell you having too low of a ticket offer when you're first starting really reduces the validity and the quality of your brand. And when you sell yourself short right off the bat, it makes people question just how valuable the offer really is. But when you
Mhm.
have high ticket offers, a bunch of them, and then you're like, well, here is this low ticket offer. It's like, yeah, I'm going to jump on it right away. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And at that time,
Yeah.
you've really built trust. It's like years of building and nurturing these audience. They know what you bring to the table. They know how valuable your information is. They trust you. They know you're not just giving any backhanded, information that you can find on Google. And so now that you're giving this low ticket offer, it's not just a, oh, that's a cheap brand. It's a, oh, they're giving me an opportunity to buy in by giving me this low ticket offer. And so I would not advise that you start off your brand trying to just like, get the lowest hanging fruit because it can only take you as far. Really building a
Yeah.
quality brand will take a level of sacrifice and a level of going a couple of days without any sales because your offers are quite high. But again, it really all comes down to balance. However, for myself, I wouldn't change anything. It really, really helps to solidify the validity of my brand for sure.
Yeah, I totally agree. And that's something I've heard echoed by quite a few guests on the podcast so far, starting with that high ticket, moving to the lower ticket eventually. I
Yeah,
also think that there's something to be said about when you're first starting and you've got 1,000 followers and you make one sale of 2,500. That's a big deal. Like that,
you're
that is,
good.
that's like,
You're
wow, like
good.
I'm good. Yeah, I'm good for the month. I don't need
Yeah,
any more. Versus I
yeah,
have 1,000 followers and I'm selling something for $25. So now I need to sell 100 just to make the same as I would with one sale of the $2,500 product. And
exactly.
so, yeah, I think it also just gives you like a big boost of motivation. Like not only are you good for
Hmm.
the month, you're like, hey, I'm fired up. I made $2,500 on to the next month. And so I
Yes.
I totally agree with what you're saying, and I'm happy to hear that.
Yes.
If you could leave our audience with one final piece of advice, you are such a wealth of knowledge, such a kind human. I'm so happy that I was able to have you on today. If you could
Thank you,
give our
Brock.
audience one final piece of advice before we part ways, what would that be?
Just show up. Show up even when it's uncomfortable. Show up when you are skeptical. Show up when you are, not feeling like you should show up. Show up anyway. If there is anything I've learned is there is a reward for consistency. There is a reward for prioritizing the experience of your community. And so show up and serve your people. They're waiting for you. They need you to show up, and you're the only person who can speak to them the way you do. You're the only person who can create that solution they've been looking for. Believe it or not, there is in 2024, every single industry is oversaturated. There is not a single industry that is undersaturated, but the only thing that stands you apart is your unique perspective. It's who you are and your experiences and what you represent. And so your people can only ever receive that information from you. And so you have to show up for them. And yeah, there's a reward for it and it pays off and you're going to be so in love with it eventually.
I love that. Thank you so much, Jeff. I appreciate you.
Thanks, Brock. This was really, really great. Thank you for having me. When Brock tells you to show up for a podcast, you show up for a podcast.
Oh, you're the best.
Thank you, Brock.
Thank you so much for listening today. I really appreciate you being here. If you enjoyed today's episode, it would mean so much to us if you took a screenshot of the episode, posted it on your Instagram stories, and tagged Jeff and myself. Let us know what your favorite moment from today's episode was. We would love to interact with you in the DMs. Just like Jeff said, he responds to every single comment he receives. I respond to every single direct message I receive. So if you enjoyed today's episode, Jeff and I would love to hear it. And I'll see you in next week's episode of Social Media Moneymakers.